Hello everyone and Happy New Year! Thank you for once again tuning into Vidiot Entertainment Studios for this episode of Vidiot Movie Reviews. I'm the Nerd Lust Daddy, and today we continue our series reviewing every North American live-action video game film adaptation theatrical release. And today we jump into citywide devastation and giant monster movie madness as we review the Dwayne The Rock Johnson film 2018's Rampage.
Oh, we's gonna smell what The Rock is cooking again?
You got it, Pidds. Let's jump into this one and see what they were able to do with this classic IP. Now, Rampage was released in North American theaters on April 13th, 2018. At this time, 7 games had been released in the series in combinations of mainline, spin-off, and reboot releases. We'll be sticking to the mainline ones for comparison, and those are Rampage, Rampage World Tour, Rampage 2 Universal Tour, Rampage Through Time, and Rampage Total Destruction. We'll be using these for a loose comparison as the film itself is a loose adaptation of the franchise, mainly focused on adapting the first game. Now let's be honest, the plot of the games is pretty bare bones, but they did eventually form one, as weak as it is, just to give reason to all the giant monster destruction. It revolves around 3 monsters, 3 more were added in later games. George, a giant King Kong-like gorilla, Ralph, a giant werewolf-like monster, and Lizzie, a giant lizard or Godzilla-like monster, all of which were humans that ended up becoming mutated by differing methods. There is some loose framing in the sequels revolving around a company named Scum Labs that ends up causing these mutations due to experiments they were conducting. For example, George was mutated by an experimental vitamin of theirs, Ralph by an experimental food additive, and Lizzie by a lake they had irradiated. Now, once mutated, the 3 monsters end up traveling across the US, raining destruction down upon major cities with no real end goal in the original game. Later entries would see them traveling the globe, the universe, and eventually through time, with at least some reason for the destruction being an attempt at stopping Scum Labs from performing further nefarious experiments. Now, the plot of the film, this deals with a company named Energene. It's doing some genetic manipulation experiments. Now, aboard a private space lab, they're conducting experiments using a genetic mutagen created under the codename Project Rampage. This mutagen can accelerate the growth, regenerative abilities, and aggression of animals exposed to it. While proven a success when used on the rat in the lab, the rat has ended up going out of control and killed everyone on the space station except for one scientist. Now, Energene refuses to let the scientists leave in an escape pod until she recovers the remaining samples of Project Rampage. She manages to recover the samples and make it to the escape pod, but during her escape, she is chased by the mutated rat that ends up scratching at the window of the escape pod, which weakens it, causing the window to crack and break during re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. Now, 3 of the canisters end up surviving re-entry and end up landing in the San Diego Wildlife Sanctuary, a Wyoming forest, and the Everglades, and infecting a gorilla, wolf, and crocodile respectively. Primatologist David Okoye, who works at the San Diego Wildlife Sanctuary, is the caretaker of a gorilla named George, who he rescued as an infant and taught to communicate using sign language. As George begins to grow and go out of control, Davis does what he can to figure out what is happening and help his animal friend, while the US government attempts to get involved, and Energene does what it can to cover up their involvement and recover any traces of Project Rampage possible. Alright, so we have some similarities in the plot, at least regarding having a nefarious company being involved, as well as beings getting mutated into giant monsters. Though, admittedly, liberties have been taken regarding the name and ambitions of the company, as well as with the monsters mutating from animals instead of humans and maintaining a more animal-like form than the monsters in the games. Still, the plot is engaging, if not in some ways a trope, but what more can you expect from a giant monster movie? I think this plot could stand on its own though, regardless of the Rampage license, so this gets a hawoo from me. Pidds, what did you think of the plot?
Hawoo!
So what about the setting and world representation? We already talked about the liberties taken with the name and intentions of the nefarious company. Still, a generic evil company is a generic evil company, and the one created for the games was bare bones and created just to give a thin story as an excuse to propel all of the monster destruction happening. The monsters themselves, even if altered from a bipedal, more humanoid form, are admirably impressive. The designs look fantastic. Furthermore, they even keep the correct names of the monsters, though I think they never actually use Lizzie's name. We also definitely get some citywide destruction reminiscent of the games, along with building climbing as a nod to them, and there are even some subtler nods that pay homage to the games, such as eating the woman in the red dress. Setting and world representation gets another easy hawoo from me. Pidds, what did you think of them?
Hawoo!
Alright, let's jump into the characters, and we'll be sticking with the main characters front and center to the movie. Let's start with Harvey Russell. Played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan, known for his roles in television series Grey's Anatomy and the superhero film Watchmen. Here he plays the agent who is a member of the American Secret Agency, known only as the Other Government Agency. The role is enjoyable, as it's one where he comes off as a cocky asshole who also spouts some admirable, laugh-worthy one-liners. A fun character when on screen, and one I can give a hawoo to. Pidds, what did you think of Harvey?
Hawoo!
Brett Weil, portrayed by Jake Lacey, known for his roles in the television series The White Lotus and the film Obvious Child, to name a couple. Here, he's the dim-witted brother to the CEO of Energy. This role gives some interesting comic relief, even if it is regarding how cowardly and ignorant he seems to be. Screen time with him gives some laughs and never comes off as eye-roll worthy, so I can give Brett a hawoo. Pidds, what did you think of him?
Hawoo!
Claire Wyden, played by Malin Ackerman, known for her roles in such films as Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle and Watchmen. She plays the CEO of Energy, the creators of Project Rampage. The role is pretty fun as she comes off as a cocky, amoral, unethical, and selfish and ruthless CEO of this company that's out for nothing more than money and power. I enjoyed the screen time with her as it was deliciously sadistic. She gets a hawoo from me. Pickles, what did you think of Claire?
Hawoo!
Catherine Caldwell, portrayed by Naomi Harris, known for her roles in the Pirates of the Caribbean films as well as the James Bond films Skyfall, Spectre, and No Way to Die. Here, she's the ex-employee of Energy who is trying to help Davis stop them and reverse the effects of Project Rampage. The performance is good as a woman trying to redeem herself for her past sins. She comes off as strong and determined, as well as a character you can show empathy for due to her initial intent with the work was to try to find a cure for a disease that her brother had. She gets a hawoo from me as well. Pidds, what did you think of Catherine?
Hawoo!
Davis Okoye, played by none other than Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Does he really need any introduction? Known as a WWE wrestling superstar as well as an action film superstar, known for films such as The Mummy Returns, The Scorpion King, The Game Plan, and the Fast and the Furious film series, as well as countless others. Here, he's the primatologist that has saved the gorilla George from certain death as an infant, and is now fighting to protect him once again and find a cure for the mutagen that has infected him. I enjoy this character as its portrayal is in the typical Rock fashion. Strong, determined, confident, and funny, as well as empathetic. This character gets another hawoo from me. Pidds, what did you think of Davis?
Hawoo!
Time for our final verdicts. Now the plot, while differing from the games, can easily stand on its own, as the plot of the games is similar in that it is about a generic, unethical corporation that creates giant monsters. Yet, the film injects some more heart into the plot with the dynamic between Davis and George. The setting and world representation, again, regardless of some slight differences in the name of the corporation and the form of the monsters, still satisfies in the representation of the corporation and monsters. And what matters most, citywide destruction from giant monsters, is satisfying and enjoyable to see on screen. Finally, the actors all portray roles that are enjoyable in their own right, whether comedic, heroic, sadistic, or some combination thereof. Let's turn to the Pidds first to see what he thinks. Pidds, what did you think of Rampage?
Hawoo!
Agreed, Pidds. This movie is pretty damn good. Not only does it meet all of the aforementioned pluses, it is also a video game film adaptation that I can honestly say improved on the game's premise and surpassed it. It's better and more enjoyable than the games themselves. I can easily give this an 8 out of 10. This is not only a movie that fans of the game franchise can easily enjoy, but also ones that fans of giant monster kaiju movies can enjoy as well. Both will have an extremely fun time with this movie. The Pidds and I want to thank you all once again for tuning into Vidiot Entertainment Studios for this episode of Vidiot Movie Reviews. If you enjoyed our video, please be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and share to show your support. And don't forget to also check us out and subscribe on Twitch, as well as follow us on Twitter. Until next time, I'm the Nerdlust Daddy, reminding you always to not be chit fuckers to each other. Body autonomy for all, reproductive rights for women, and peace, love, and happiness to all. Take us home, Pidds.
Thank yous all for watching. See yous next week.
We'll all sing along once we count down from 10 and then they play this song. We're gonna celebrate a baby, let the old man sleep. Gonna make some resolutions that will break in a